Tonight, our local pollies trade blows over when works will begin on overtaking lanes between Port Augusta and Whyalla. And Broken Hill's fabulous Broken Hill event headed for the big smoke this Australia Day.
This is Southern Cross News with Fraser Goldsworthy.
Good evening. Wailer's federal and state MPs have traded blows over overtaking lanes between Whyalla and Port Augusta. Rowan Ramsey says he was told works would begin in November, but a delay in the design has pushed construction back.
2 years on from its announcement, there's still no sign of work on overtaking lanes between Whyalla and Port Augusta. It's angered Rowan Ramsey, who says work should have started months ago.
I was told they finally signed off on the project and that would start in November or December, and now of course here we are in January and almost at the end of January. And still absolutely no progress.
He claims the state government, which is responsible for the project, is dragging its feet, despite the feds coughing up 80% of the funds. He's demanding Eddie Hughes start asking questions of Transport Minister Stephen Mulligan.
And say, look, I've got to get this going. I'm representing Whyalla, and we're responsible for building these passing lanes, and they're not happening. What's going on?
The state government is pointing the finger at design delays.
The surveying work, as I understand, has been commenced, and we expect that start in mid-February.
The member for Giles says in the future, Mr Ramsey is more than welcome to contact him with any concerns.
Rowan never makes the effort to contact. He doesn't contact the department.
But Mr Ramsey says his requests have fallen on deaf ears.
The last piece of correspondence I had was quite a while ago. I wrote to the Minister. I didn't get a response the last time.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Rural South Australian communities are in desperate need of full-time doctors, particularly on the state's far west coast. The Streaky Bay Council has purchased the town's medical practice in a bid to lure a full-time GP.
With 7 million Australians living in rural areas, accessing health professionals can be a struggle, but it can be even harder to recruit them.
In a town like ours, it's absolutely vital.
Streaky Bay is the latest country town in need of a medical professional after the local GP of 23 years retired.
The real risk for Streaky Bay is that the practice would close, that they would lose the doctor altogether.
During a town meeting earlier this week, the community voted to form an incorporated association, taking over the medical practice left by its departing doctor.
It's basically run, managed and led by the townspeople.
The council says it was forced to do so in order to secure the medical services in the interim, while trying to lure a full-time doctor to the region. Small communities throughout Australia are struggling to secure medical professionals with an oversupply of doctors in metropolitan areas. Recently, the town of Kimber recruited a physician after 2 agonising years of searching. But the Mayor of Streaky Bay is hopeful the Eyre Peninsula Local Government Association can ease the pressure for other communities going without.
Triangulating some hospitals and getting a few doctors that will liaise across a few hospitals that are only 100 k's apart.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Whyalla's indoor pool is out of action until further notice as council continues to investigate a leak. It'll begin work over the weekend to fix an issue complicated by the amount of concrete covering some pipes. It comes as the town swelters through a heat wave. Council says the toddler pools and other facilities are still open for locals to use. The Copper Coast Council is looking to build a pedestrian footbridge over the Wallaroo Marina. Councillors finally endorsed the proposal after years of discussion.
Connecting North Beach to Wallaroo, Council has given the pedestrian crossing a tick of approval to cater for the needs of the wider community.
The pedestrian walkway where people who are now much more conscious about fitness, walking, cycling, can get on their bike or get on their feet and walk into town.
It's hoped the new $1 million footbridge will have the ability to open and close, allowing passing boats into the marina.
Council now have had some investigations about the cost and the feasibility and believe that it's getting closer to being able to be done.
Before the marina was built, a road connected the 2 destinations together, but now
For people that stay in the caravan park, live in the Marina, have got beach homes along the North Beach, have to get in their cars to go into the town.
It's a 6-kilometre drive around the Marina, meaning locals and tourists are more inclined to drive a few extra Ks to Kadina to meet all of their shopping needs.
But I think the business places within the town centre will have a greater opportunity of profiting from the many tourists that come to Wallaroo every year.
Council is now seeking public feedback with the expectation of construction to begin within a few years' time. Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
Oz Minerals is well and truly in the green after reporting a huge quarter at the end of last year. The mining giant says it's expecting to gain the Carrapateena project's mining lease approval within months. Amelia Simpson has more.
The company behind the Mammoth Copper and Gold Mine, 160 kilometres north of Port Augusta, says its final quarter of 2017 has exceeded forecasts. Oz Minerals has topped its previous quarter by 33% in gold production and says its jobs-boosting Carrapateena facility is well on track. The mining company currently produces copper and gold at its Prominent Hill mine southeast of Coober Pedy, finishing the year with a $729 million cash balance. A positive upward trend from the $639 million the quarter before. The company says it's now making steady progress on the Carrapateena project with the first wave of construction underway. Development has reached 4.2 kilometres and a vertical depth of 300 metres in a continuing project that is expected to see nearly 1,000 jobs for the region. Oz Minerals predicts its $128 million concentrate treatment plant proposed for the region to achieve a final investment decision at the end of this year. Oz Minerals CEO told Southern Cross News in a statement that the project's mining lease approval process is set to be completed this quarter. Once approved, the project will progress to the second stage of construction where it's expected to start steady-state production by late next year.
Thanks, Amelia. Amelia Simpson in Port Augusta there. Still to come tonight, a global phenomenon headed for Port Broughton. The details next. The Lincoln Cove Marina pontoon could soon receive a complete overhaul. Sarin Group's Lincoln Cove Investments has successfully won the contract for future operations. Works for the platform has been in dispute since the Tacoma Preservation Society also submitted plans for a permanent berth of its historic fishing vessel. The multi-purpose pontoon will soon cater for vessels up to 45 tonnes, specifically for tourism operators in the region. Pending council approval, the new pontoon could be afloat this year. Well, Parkrun is set to hit the streets of Port Broughton for the very first time this weekend. It's hoped the community event will encourage families to become more active, all the while showcasing the region.
A worldwide event is set to take its marks in Port Broughton this weekend.
A community event which is free, it doesn't discriminate. If people can't afford to play footy or netball, then they can come and do this.
Parkrun is a 5-kilometre fun run along the town's picturesque esplanade. Being a regional town, keen residents usually have to travel hours to participate, but that won't be a problem anymore.
There's 11 park runs around the state, and having one at Port Broughton is a good opportunity to create some new activities and events.
Park runs for both the young and old, with many elderly residents already signing up.
And we have one of the oldest age demographic community in Australia, so certainly any activity that we can support them in being able to be active.
The first trial fun run or walk kicks off this Sunday.
Trials are happening over the next 2 weeks, but certainly we'd be looking forward to the event building over time and being a way to attract people to Port Broughton on the weekends.
And if the trial's successful, the runs could become a regular event.
We launch on the 3rd of February, and that will be the first Saturday, and then it runs every Saturday from that.
Rachel Nell, Southern Cross News.
The Chamber of Mining and Energy says a growing miner sector will only put pressure on the near 50-year-old Joybaluk Bridge. In its list of election priorities, the Chamber is lobbying the federal government to fund its duplication.
Connecting Darwin and Perth to Adelaide, Melbourne and Sydney is certainly a big job. But SA's Mining and Energy Chamber is now pushing the federal government to fund a duplication of the bridge that has that huge task.
This is a significant bottleneck It's been raised by our members as being an area that needs focus and hence its inclusion on our strategic plan.
The Chamber says the projected growth of the mining sector will inevitably put pressure on the 46-year-old bridge.
And this will put increased pressure on an already constrained piece of road, which is pivotal to movement of vehicles and equipment and product, both north, south and east and west.
It was only ever anticipated to be around about a 20-year option anyway.
In November, the state government announced it would commit $40 million. Now all parties are waiting on the federal government to put forward its 80% share.
And to be brutally honest, we've been talking about it for far too long, including some politicians have been talking about it for far too long.
Yet federal member for Grey, Rowan Ramsey, says he's also waiting.
But what I need from the state government is some detail on the proposal, some plans, some idea of how they're going to handle the property acquisition.
Amelia Simpson, Southern Cross News.
Broken Hill water activists are vowing to continue their fight for the release of the Murray River Pipeline business case. An action group held its half-yearly meeting last night, and there was plenty on the agenda.
Keeping up the fight.
The meeting went very well.
The Murray River to Broken Hill pipeline continues to dominate discussion, with the unreleased business case drawing plenty of speculation to what the state government may be hiding.
If the government wanted to give something to the community and prove that it was worthwhile, then why wouldn't they release the business case?
Mr Clifton says the community would throw its support behind the project if the government was more transparent.
Environmental, economical and social, which the government pushes along all the time. If the triple bottom line is achieved, then we want to know about it.
Sustainable diversion limits were also raised, particularly the potential reduction of 70 gigalitres of water from the Northern Basin, meaning
70 gigalitre less flow down the Darling River, which to our view it can't be substantiated in any way.
The Murray-Darling Basin Authority, they will not actually take that back off irrigators. What they will do, they were saying that they'll be able to get that back through on-farm efficiencies instead of buying it back off of the irrigators.
Mr Hutton believes that will not happen and the water will be lost, meaning legal action is on the table.
There's legislation going through at the moment, probably at the end of this month. If it actually goes through, then we will, Darling River Action Group, will use the Environmental Defenders Office to fight that legislation.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
After the break, the Broken Hill Festival headed for Sydney for Australia Day. We'll speak to organisers next. Well, a glitzy and glamorous event from Broken Hill is about to receive nationwide publicity. The Broken Hill Festival has been invited to join in the massive Australia Day celebrations in Sydney.
An invitation like no other.
Department of Premier and Cabinet extended an invitation for us to showcase the festival at their Australia Day celebrations happening in Sydney this year.
In its fourth year, the fabulous event celebrating feature film Priscilla, Queen of the Desert continues to draw hundreds of interstate and international visitors to the city.
I've got 6 drag artists going down who will be part of the finale spectacular on the main stage, which I think will be sort of floating out on the harbour of Circular Quay.
And plenty of eyes will be on them.
They're probably expecting at least 65,000 down at Circular Quay during the event, and then it is broadcast to sort of over 2.5 million. So, very exciting for the festival to get this coverage.
2017 saw the biggest crowd numbers for the event, with almost 1,000 revellers at the Palace on Saturday night. And while the 2018 Broken Hill Festival is still 8 months away, early bird tickets have been selling fast. They officially sold out this morning.
So that's sort of over 200 sold, about 250, including ones we've sold through the office here. And again, really showing a really big cross-section of where people are coming from for the event.
The festival will be held on the 7th, 8th and 9th of September. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
I'm sure it'll be bigger and better than last year. Time now for fishing tips.
Another week around the Gulf Fishing Tips. It's time to happen at the moment. We've got blue swimmer crabs on the march, we've got garfish on the march, yellowfin whiting starting to happen and all that, and there's a few snapper around the place too. So work hard when you get out there. Remember, with your garfish, burley up on the top and fish with a spring float.
Hi, Wailers Fishing Report. This week there's been some good snapper coming across the town. Further south has been the best area to target for the smaller fish. The bigger fish have been coming from the deeper water. The Point Lowly Rip's been very hit and miss, but there's been some nice sized bronze whaler sharks hiding in there, so they're good fun to get amongst as well. The crabs are really starting to push in good along the town. Best areas to target have been around north of Whyalla in front of the coke ovens and down towards Mount Young.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, locally the guys have been struggling a bit inshore over the past week. We had a dodge tide and pretty average weather on the weekend, and a lot of people did struggle. Louth Bay has had a few whiting up there. Within the bay itself, the whiting are pretty tough here in Port Lincoln, but there are some squid to fill the time, and the crabs haven't really kicked into gear yet. The offshore action has been pretty good. There's been some good tuna caught down around South Neptunes, out on the Cabbage Patch, and also around Liggy Island. Over the Coffin Bay side, offshore, there's been some good school sharks, and there have been some nanagai and a few snapper on the lumps over there as well. Moving over to the beaches of the far west, there's been some salmon along the Dog Fence Beach, and there have been a few mulloway mixed in up there, but you will have to put in the time for them at the moment. Well, that's all for this week. We'll see you again with more fishing tips next week.
Well, stay with us. We'll have all the weather details next with Abby. And Abby, the Spencer Gulf sizzled today.
It certainly did, Fraser. A heat wave swept across all centres. And the bad news is this extreme heat is going to hang around tomorrow as well. I'll have all the details next. Welcome back. Well, the Spencer Gulf sweltered today thanks to a hot air mass from the east. The heat packed a punch in Port Augusta. A scorching 44 was the max. It was almost as hot in Whyalla and Port Pirie, 42 the top for both centres. And the mercury hit the low 40s everywhere else, so a very hot day indeed. To the satellite now, and cloud is beginning to increase over far western parts of South Australia as a low and trough begin to approach the border, causing some scattered showers. For those escaping the heat on the waters tomorrow, we'll see southwesterly winds shifting southeasterly up to 20 knots, seas at a metre, and sunrise is at 6:26. Looking to tomorrow now, and the mercury is going to nudge 45 degrees in Port Augusta, so stay inside in the aircon tomorrow indeed. 43 in Whyalla, but we'll see slightly cooler temps in the west as they drop into the 30s. Coffin Bay is heading for a top of 32 degrees. Another scorcher in store for Woodner tomorrow, 44 the top. Well, it's going to be 43 in Broken Hill and Port Pirie, with everywhere else also joining the 40s club. Looking ahead, thankfully, most centres in the west will cool down for the weekend, except in Woodner. It's going to be 41 on Saturday for you. It'll be fine and 29 on Sunday in Port Lincoln before temps cool off in all other centres for the start of the working week. And it's a very hot story further up the Gulf, with the mercury rising into the mid-40s tomorrow before temps cool off slightly for Saturday, but it's still going to be warm with temps hovering around the low 40s all weekend in Port Augusta. But the good news is we'll see a lot more relief from the heat to start the working week. Fine and 28 on Monday in Whyalla. And lastly, it's going to be hot, hot, hot around Port Pirie and Broken Hill tomorrow. 43 the top, a scorching 41 degree days in store for Clare. Temps will cool off slightly into the 30s for the rest of the weekend and Monday in Port Pirie and Clare though, except in Broken Hill, warming up to 44 there, and it will stay like that on Sunday. So, Fraser, the region's set to swelter, so keep cool, stay hydrated and stay indoors, and be sure to check the CFS website for the latest fire ban and danger information. Fraser.
Very wise advice. Thanks, Abby. And that's all the news to now. Thanks for your company. Enjoy your evening. Good night.